It's like taking care of a child. When a mother takes care of her child, she never forgets about the child. I love the fact that we're doing this interview because I get to really remember Krishna during this interview. Namaste everyone, this is Ira Trivedi wishing you a very, very happy Janmashtami, Shubh Janmashtami. The celebration begins the evening prior, continuing if possible to midnight. And then midnight is always, the moment when we celebrate the real, I would say, the cake cutting. We don't cut a cake, but it's how we bring in birthdays at 12 with a cake cutting. Here we bring in by chanting, really by celebrating the birth of baby Krishna. On Janmashtami itself and even the day prior, the day is filled with a lot of cooking of food because Bhagwan loves good food. Who doesn't, right? On birthdays, you want to have delicious food. So we always prepare a few special items for Krishna that he loves, a makhan, a lot of midday. Bhagwan loves shringar. So dressing Bhagwan up, decorating the temple, that's typically how I celebrate Janmashtami. Always do my own practice as well. So because for me, my yoga practice is prayer in motion, that I do my own practice, I do my own chanting. I love singing for the Lord, so doing kirtan and doing some bhajan, chanting the Mahamantra. So these are the kind of things that I love to do. So just like we do in our own birthdays. So on this particular day, we want to celebrate Krishna's life. And we just do it by augmenting the things that we do every single day, but we do them in a much more special way. Previously, I liked going to temples, but now that I find temples very, very crowded, it's difficult to go there. But if sometimes I'll sneak in and just observe, because even the temples are so beautifully decorated, and there's so much, Bhagwan is dressed up so beautifully, the atmosphere can be wonderful. But I always try to create my temple at home doing the same things. It started with me in 10th standard actually, when I myself got a Balkrishna. So it's a practice of bhakti where you keep a Krishna with you at home and you treat Krishna like a living deity. So every morning there is bhog. In fact, there's bhog 3 or 4 times a day. Whatever we're cooking at home, we first offer it to God so that it becomes sacred, it becomes prasad. The shringar that happens every day with the bathing of Krishna, with his dressing and putting him to sleep every night, waking up in the morning with a prayer, going to bed with a prayer. So it becomes, that bhakti becomes part of our day-to-day lives. And it's really wonderful because when we're doing this, Krishna is always on your mind. Even if I'm not at home, I'll always ensure that there is some bhog which is offered to the Lord on a daily basis. It's like taking care of a child. When a mother takes care of her child, she never forgets about the child. The child is always there at the back of her mind that we need to take care of this aspect. And it's a beautiful practice. And when I'm traveling, then Krishna travels along with me. In my head, I like to think of the Lord at least 24 times a day. I said, if I think of the Lord 24 times a day, that's once every hour that I'm remembering His presence in my life through some activity that I'm doing. So whatever I'm doing, whether I'm writing, I love the fact that we're doing this interview because I get to really remember Krishna during this interview. I try to bring His presence into my life. I would say much more spiritual. In fact, that's why when you ask me, what do you do on Janmashtami? I'm not following any rules and regulations, but I didn't feel like fasting was a joyous way of celebration. I said, no, I want to celebrate Krishna's life. And when I'm fasting, I'm seeing that I'm becoming more cranky than happy. So I said, I want to celebrate this day with a lot of joy and happiness. And to do that, I'm going to be cooking and eating and celebrating like it's a big birthday party. So what I bring into this is much more spiritual. Well, I don't like to follow any set rules and regulations which don't bring me joy. I had actually gone to Vrindavan. So my parents are quite religious, so we'd visit temples often. So this was after a trip to Vrindavan. So definitely my mother's presence in my life has played a huge role in Krishna Bhakti, and that's what cultural and family values give us. Through this, I have adopted what I find is suitable for my life, but I've also left away things which I didn't quite understand, which I thought were more religious by nature, which had too many rules and regulations, which didn't suit my life, or I didn't necessarily connect to them. So whatever practice that I'm doing, I want to make sure that I'm fully connected to those practices. I'm not just doing this because of a mundane practice. Do feel that idol worship brings a certain sense of sanctity into our lives, but not over idol worship. I think over idol worship can create, I know someone who does like really long rituals every day, and they use, liters of orange juice and milk, and I think to myself that those liters of orange juice and milk that are being used could have been given to a hungry person, So I believe doing idol worship in moderation, that makes more sense to me, where there's no wastage and there's a lot of thought behind whatever that you're doing. We wanted our wedding to be simple, we wanted it to be beautiful, and we wanted it to be just full of Krishna's blessings, and we're glad that we did that. Started doing yoga when I was quite young, but then I used to find it very boring. The way that it was taught, I used to find it awfully boring, and I felt like I needed something more active. But I got reintroduced to it in my early 20s when I went to the US, and yoga was so differently taught there. It was being done by all the actors, all the celebrities. It was like the form of yoga was much more vigorous, and it made me more curious. And so then I came back to India and I started exploring yoga here more seriously. And then I discovered the right kind of yoga for me. So just like with bhakti, you have to discover the right practices for you. Otherwise, you may find that practices are mundane, they're boring, they're ritualistic. It just looks like so many items, so many items. In fact, we typically do a potluck and we'll have people over. So everyone will bring prasad for Bhagwan, and the table will be full of different items from different people's homes. It's really beautiful. I have a big community with Yog Love, my yoga company. So definitely, and I do a lot of teacher training courses. So through our teacher training courses, we try to do as much as possible. I started learning harmonium recently, actually. I grew up playing the flute. That was my main instrument. But then over the past few years, I started loving singing. I'm not a very good singer, but I love singing because there's so much joy in singing. And we don't sing because we don't think that we're good singers or we're conscious. So I said, let me try to get over that. And I really tried, do a little bit. So I have a harmonium. I'm not a professional singer or professional harmonium player. I just know a few things, but I just do it for my own joy, for my own happiness. On Janmashtami, okay, I'm going to say that everyone should read a few pages of the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm going to give you a few different versions of the Bhagavad Gita that you can read. There's a Bhagavad Gita by Eknath Ishwaran. It's really, really nice. A very simple introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. There's also a Bhagavad Gita by Parthasarthi. The Bhagavad Gita is such a simple book. There's also a Bhagavad Gita by Devdak Patnaik, which is even more simple. So grab a copy of the Bhagavad Gita on Janmashtami and start reading even a few pages a week before you go to sleep, and that can really, really have positive effects in your life. Thank you, Midday, for conducting this beautiful interview and celebrating the life of Lord Krishna. Hari Bol.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.